as new investors Tom Wagner and seven-time Super Bowl champion Tom Brady took in the plaudits of their first visit to Birmingham last summer. Everything finally seemed rosy after years of turmoil. A last-minute penalty had just beaten promotion hopefuls Leeds in the second of what would be a 5-game unbeaten streak to start the season. After 10 games, Birmingham sat 5th following a commanding 3-1 win over local rivals West Brom, in front of their largest home crowd since before the pandemic. Areas of St Andrews, left in such disrepair that whole stands had been shut the previous seasons, were back open and gleaming. The broken old shelves in the home dressing room were finally fixed. The players' tunnel had been decorated with inspirational quotes and pictures. Finally, this house felt like home again. "We are not here for a short period of time. We are here for the long haul," said Wagner, the new club chairman, following that first home win of the season. "All of our decisions are focused on what's best for the club in the long term." Football is never simple. Good times rarely last too long, and words are easy. But even with the unwanted helping of deja vu, that quote would come back to haunt Wagner, Brady and Birmingham quicker than anybody would have imagined. Despite a final day victory over playoff-bound Norwich, they have now been relegated to the 3rd tier for the first time in almost 30 years. This year has seen 6 managers, a global superstar manager, a global superstar owner, and of course, relegation. So how has it come to this after such a bright start under their new owners? This is how Birmingham FC have fallen to League One. That West Brom game where Birmingham seemed on top of the world would actually prove to be Sean O'Eusta's last in charge. It would be unfair to put the blame for what followed solely on the decision to replace him with Wayne Rooney, whose short managerial career had shown signs of promise, but it sowed many of the seeds of the demise. The mood in the summer of 2023 couldn't have been more positive after United's takeover. Supporters were desperate for a new ownership after 14 years under Chinese-backed Birmingham Sports Holdings, whose identities were never clear, and they had left St Andrews literally crumbling. The team on the pitch also required major investment. Wagner and United have provided that, but while they have achieved off the field, mistakes, impatience and ill fortune have hampered progress on it. Wagner, a billionaire who co-founded United, didn't have things easy when it came to taking over Birmingham, given the confusing and secretive nature of the previous owners. Numerous parties had looked at the club before and simply decided they could not do business with the Chinese owners, so Wagner's group achieved something many thought was impossible. But did that early success go to their heads? Having done the seemingly difficult bit, did they underestimate the eternal challenge of putting a competitive team on the pitch? The decision to remove popular manager Eusta after just 11 games of the season, immediately after back-to-back wins that had them in the playoff places, and to replace him with the inexperienced former star player Rooney, turned out to be disastrous. It seemed the new superstar owners had similar designs for the role of their head coach, hence bringing in one of the game's most recognisable faces of this century. But the suitability to the main role of coaching Birmingham's players was perhaps given less consideration than it might have been, and soon results began to show it. The new bosses asked for patience and trust. Their reasoning was clear. In order to compete with the big clubs, Birmingham needed to expand their commercial base and grow the revenue. City, together with Craig Gardner, the director of football, believe Rooney could also help take the Blues to a new level on the pitch. But it was an act of self-harm, tarnishing some of the pre-season positivity and damaging attempts to re-engage the club with the fan base. Although probably seen as a statement of intent at the time, bringing in a high-profile name as the club's figurehead ultimately destabilised Birmingham's season. Craig Gardner felt the team he had built with 12 new signings last summer were capable of playing a more attractive brand of no-fear football. Euster was more cautious about the timescale in which that could be achieved. He knew his days in charge were numbered, but didn't anticipate his removal coming when it did. Rooney tried to transform Birmingham immediately, but he quickly realised the players he'd inherited weren't fit enough to execute a high-tempo, high-pressing brand of no-fear football that the board wanted. Euster had them set up to play a less impactful style. To try and improve fitness levels, Rooney and his staff had conducted intense training sessions, similar to a mini pre-season. The players, also playing games of course, just couldn't cope. One win from his first 9 games, coupled with increasing public outbursts questioning his players' desire, sapped the positive spirit around St Andrews out. As they were soon replaced with boos, he called for patience, but even he could not deny he understood the fans' frustration. My job is to improve them as players, so in the next 6 months, we hope there will be changes because you want to bring players in and players will leave, he said after one of the worst of those results, a dull 0-0 against Rotherham, who themselves had won only twice all season at the time. 6 months was optimistic given the stone-like drop of his Birmingham reign. Plummeting from 5th to 20th in 15 matches was enough egg on the face of Brady and Wagner that something had to be done. There were obvious parallels between Rooney's appointment and that of Gianfranco Zola under Birmingham's old owners. Like Rooney, he had replaced a popular manager, on that occasion Gary Rowett, who had them fighting for promotion. Like Rooney, Zola had been an unmitigated disaster. Rooney was gone less than 3 months into a 3.5-year contract, which was said to be worth around £5 million. There was significant mitigation for Rooney, who faced a baptism of fire and a raft of injury problems which did deplete his squad. So after this disaster, Birmingham turned to the safe hands of the hugely experienced Tony Mowbray. Surely he could steady the ship. Mowbray had been dealt a tough hand in recent roles, leaving jobs at Blackburn and most recently Sunderland, with both on the brink of playoffs. So no one could say he was unfamiliar with Birmingham's recent plight. He had been brought in as a firefighter at Coventry and then Blackburn, and had an instant impact in both roles. Sure enough, 10 points from 6 games followed, including especially sweet back-to-back wins over his most recent 2 clubs, which lifted them back to 15th, with a 6-point cushion above the bottom 3. But then, another moment which has made Birmingham's downfall more complicated struck suddenly. 2 days after he had been in the dugout to mastermind that win over his former club Sunderland, Mowbray required medical treatment serious enough it would eventually rule him out until the end of the season, and which has still not been publicly disclosed. After a difficult period where the club tried to bide its time in the hope Mowbray would be well enough to return, the decline of the pitch continued in the absence of a permanent manager. A disastrous run of 1 point from 6 games under Mowbray's assistant Mark Venus meant the hierarchy had no choice but to make another managerial change, with Rowett returning to the club to take charge for this season and avoid the drop into League One. The irony of Rowett's return and the manner of it, taking over the same kind of sinking ship that had followed the end of his first spell in charge, was not lost. But Birmingham needed something quick, and Rowett had been out of work since he was sacked by Millwall last October. Despite a spirited effort, he could not keep them afloat in the Championship in the end. The constant disruption was reflected in the results, with many inexperienced players seemingly unable to deal with this constant change of manager and message. Recruitment should also be scrutinised. Rooney may have tried to change too much too quickly, but he soon realised what Eusta had been saying was true. The squad didn't have the right characteristics to play the football the club's hierarchy wished them to. Then, in the winter transfer window, the influx of new players Rooney had been expecting before his sacking didn't happen. Although Pike Sung-yu, Alex Pritchard and Andre Dozzell did come in, experienced defender Kevin Long was allowed to leave without being replaced, and Birmingham also failed to bring in the striker, who they desperately needed. The club were still working under tight financial restrictions, having posted a pre-tax loss of 23 million for the season 21-22, in which their estimated wage bill of 32 million was the sixth highest in the Championship. They would have also posted a 30 million loss the season before that, but for the sale of Jude Bellingham to Borussia Dortmund. Their 22-23 accounts showed revenue was up 9% and wages down 10%, but they were still spending £147 for every £100 of revenue coming in, with a loss of 26 million, when EFL rules only allow a loss of 13 million per season. It was early days in the Knighthead era, but Birmingham still needed to reduce their budget, and this stopped them from helping the team in January from their plight down the table. So, where does the accountability lie for the relegation? The new owners seem beyond reproach for their work off the field, but the senior management style and the football strategy seem muddled at best and chaotic at worst. Even with relegation, there is a strange feeling around St Andrews. If you ask most fans if they'd spot where they are now from where they were a year ago, most would actually still snap your hand off. Last month, Knighthead unveiled ambitious plans for a brand new 60,000-seater stadium and new commercial ventures, even while the team were in the middle of a relegation battle. Those development plans would continue, they said, even if the team were to drop into League One. It's that promise of a much brighter future which is making the short-term bitterness of relegation sweet enough for the fans to stomach. They also have plans to push for Category 1 academy status, with the club's men's under-18s and under-21 side both enjoying successful seasons in the Professional Development League. They also highlight the backing they have given to Birmingham City women, who ply their trade in the Women's Championship. Yet, a lack of stable strategy led to destabilisation in the coaching and resulted in poor displays from a group of players who looked drained of confidence by the end and were not equipped for a relegation battle. Knighthead may have big plans, but after the years of neglect under the club's previous regime, they tried to run in their first season when Birmingham needed to learn to walk again, and they tripped themselves up as a result. They have now taken a terrible spill and landed in League One. As Birmingham were getting relegated, Ipswich Town reached the Premier League after winning back-to-back promotions. That has to be the goal at St Andrews too, but they need a cohesive plan and consistent decision-making to achieve it. So, that is the situation at Birmingham City. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Personally, my opinion on it is just a case of, as I said at the end there, they tried to run before they walked. I think the owners have good intentions. Tom Brady and Knighthead are definitely trying to develop the club and do good things, but they probably rushed it a little bit and expected a lot in their first season. Kind of similar to what Chelsea did in a way with Todd Bowley. They, made managerial changes, player changes, all too quickly when maybe they should have just got the infrastructure and strategy in place, and just had a bit of a stabilising season this year. But I think Birmingham will be fine under their new owners, as long as they get promotion straight back to the Championship, which I think they are one of the favourites probably to do. I think the future will look good for Birmingham, but it's probably a bitter pill for them to swallow. I would love to hear any of your thoughts on the Birmingham situation. I know I have a lot of Championship fans out there who watch the channel, so you guys probably know about the situation that's going on at Birmingham a bit more than I do. If there is any Birmingham fans watching as well, please let me know what's gone wrong this season.